Under the dim light of her small apartment, Ella sat on the worn-out couch, her fingers trembling as she held an old photograph. The edges were frayed, and the vibrant colors had faded over time, but the girl in the picture was unmistakably her. She looked so young, so carefree, her wide smile radiating confidence, but Ella knew the truth. Behind that smile was a girl who had chosen a path of destruction, trading innocence for illusions of wealth and glamour. Tears streaked her face as memories she had fought to bury came rushing back. She whispered to herself, "How did I become this person?" Ella grew up in a small, sleepy town where life was simple and predictable. Her father worked as a mechanic, and her mother ran a local bakery. They were not rich, but they were content. Ella, however, hated the monotony of it all. At 20, she packed her bags and moved to the city, chasing dreams of excitement and luxury. She found a job as a waitress at a bustling cafe, but the pay was meager, and the long hours wore her down. One night, while serving drinks at a private party, she met Marcus, a wealthy businessman twice her age. "You have a beautiful smile," Marcus said, handing her a $200 tip. "With your looks, you could have anything you want." Those words planted a seed in her mind. Why work tirelessly for scraps when men like Marcus were willing to give her the world? Ella's transformation from a modest small-town girl to a woman enamored with the glittering city life happened faster than she could have imagined. Working long hours at the cafe had made her desperate for change, and the attention she began receiving from men like Marcus was intoxicating. Marcus was a man of extravagance. He drove luxury cars, dined at the finest restaurants, and knew how to command a room. He was twice her age, but Ella didn't care. The power and security he represented were all that mattered. On their first real date, Marcus took her to a rooftop bar overlooking the city. The skyline glittered like a field of stars. He handed her a diamond bracelet and said, "This is just the beginning, Ella. Stick with me, and you'll never have to worry about money again." Ella's heart raced. For the first time, she felt like she was living the life she had always dreamed of. But soon, cracks began to show. One evening, Marcus threw a lavish party at his mansion. Ella wore a designer gown he had bought her, feeling like royalty as she mingled with his friends. But as the night wore on, she noticed Marcus getting possessive. "Why were you talking to Damien for so long?" he asked sharply. "We were just chatting," Ella replied, startled by his tone. "You're with me, Ella. Don't forget that," he said, gripping her arm tightly. That night, Marcus's charm turned into control. He started monitoring her every move, demanding to know where she was and who she was with. Ella's newfound life of luxury began to feel like a golden cage. The breaking point came one night when Marcus, drunk and seething with jealousy, slapped her during an argument. "You think you can survive without me?" he sneered. "You're nothing without me." Ella fled that night, leaving behind the bracelet, the gowns, and the life Marcus had built for her. But instead of learning her lesson, she convinced herself that Marcus was the exception, not the rule. "I just need to find the right man," she told herself. But as she continued seeking wealth over love, she unknowingly walked deeper into a web of danger. At 27, Ella met Sam at a small cafe where she had gone to escape her increasingly chaotic life. Sam was nothing like the men she usually dated. He was a struggling musician with messy hair and a guitar that looked like it had seen better days. "Mind if I sit here?" he asked, pointing to the seat across from her. Ella looked up, slightly annoyed, but nodded. Sam's easy smile and warm demeanor caught her off guard. They began talking, and before Ella knew it, hours had passed. Over the next few weeks, Sam and Ella grew closer. He would pick her up on his beat-up bike and take her to hidden spots around the city, places that weren't glamorous but were filled with charm. One night, Sam surprised her with a song he had written. "It's for you," he said, strumming his guitar nervously. The lyrics spoke of her beauty, her strength, and a longing to protect her from the world's harshness. Ella was touched, but conflicted. She cared for Sam, but his life didn't align with the future she envisioned for herself. One day, as they sat on a park bench, Sam said, "Ella, I know I can't give you the world, but I'll spend my life trying to make you happy. Just give me a chance." Her heart ached, but her ambition outweighed her emotions. "Sam, I can't live on love songs. I need stability, security, things you can't give me." Sam's face fell, but he nodded. "I hope you find what you're looking for, Ella." Years later, Ella would see Sam on television, performing at a sold-out concert. He had become everything he once dreamed of, and she realized too late that she had rejected the one man who truly loved her. By 28, Ella's life had taken a darker turn. Her beauty was her currency, and she used it to attract wealthy, powerful men. But the men she encountered were increasingly dangerous. Victor was one of them. He was a charismatic businessman with a sinister edge. He lavished Ella with gifts, designer bags, luxury vacations, and wads of cash. At first, she thought she had hit the jackpot. "You're the most beautiful woman I've ever met," he told her during their first date at an exclusive club. "Stick with me, and I'll make sure you never have to lift a finger." Ella ignored the warning signs. Victor's temper was quick, and his business dealings were mysterious. He would disappear for days, returning with stacks of money and vague explanations. One night, Victor took her to an underground club where the air was thick with smoke and tension. Ella felt out of place but stayed by his side, desperate to maintain her connection to his wealth. Suddenly, an argument broke out between Victor and another man. Voices were raised, fists flew, and then came the sound of gunfire. Chaos erupted as people screamed and ran for the exits. Victor grabbed Ella's hand, pulling her through a back door. Her heart pounded as they sped away in his car. "What just happened?" she demanded. "Don't ask questions, Ella," he snapped. "Just trust me." But trust was impossible. Ella began to feel like a pawn in Victor's dangerous game. One night, she overheard him on the phone, discussing a deal that involved laundering money. Fear gripped her, but she didn't know how to leave. Her breaking point came when Victor was arrested during a raid on his penthouse. Ella narrowly avoided being implicated, but the experience left her shaken. "I can't keep living like this," she told Carla over the phone. "You've been saying that for years, Ella," Carla replied. "When are you going to mean it?" Ella didn't have an answer. For the first time, she realized she had no control over her life. By 35, Ella had hit rock bottom. The beauty that once opened every door for her was fading, and the energy she had spent chasing wealth had left her with nothing but emptiness. The lavish parties and designer dresses were distant memories. Her life was now confined to a small, dingy apartment she could barely afford. One morning, as she prepared for her shift at a local diner, she caught her reflection in the bathroom mirror. Her once radiant skin was dull, dark circles shadowed her eyes, and her hair had lost its shine. She leaned closer, as if trying to find traces of the girl she used to be. "Who are you?" she whispered to herself. The days felt monotonous. At work, Ella overheard her co-workers chatting about their families, their children, and their plans for the weekend. She felt like an outsider, her life starkly different from theirs. One evening, scrolling through social media, she saw pictures of her childhood friends. Carla was celebrating her 10th wedding anniversary, surrounded by her husband and 2 kids. Another friend, Melissa, had just given birth to her 3rd child. A lump formed in Ella's throat. These were the same girls she used to dream with, the same ones who ended her boldness when she moved to the city. But now, they had lives filled with love and purpose, while she had nothing but regrets. She called Carla, her voice trembling. "Why does everyone have a happy life except me?" Carla's response was gentle but firm. "Ella, happiness doesn't come from the things you've been chasing. It's not too late to change, but you have to want it." For the first time, Ella began to confront the choices that had led her to this point. Change didn't come overnight, but it began in the smallest of ways. Ella took a second job at a bakery to make ends meet. The early mornings were grueling, but the sense of routine gave her a stability she hadn't felt in years. It was at the diner where she met David. He was a regular customer, a soft-spoken man with kind eyes and grease-stained hands from working as a mechanic. Unlike the men Ella had known, David wasn't flashy or rich. He was ordinary, but there was something comforting about his presence. One day, David stayed after closing to help Ella clean up. "You work too hard," he said, handing her a towel. Ella laughed dryly. "I'm making up for lost time." They began talking, and Ella found herself sharing pieces of her past. She expected judgment, but David only listened, his gaze steady. "Everyone's made mistakes," he said. "What matters is what you do now." Ella was skeptical. "Why are you being so nice to me?" "Because I see someone who's trying," he said simply. For the first time in years, Ella felt hope. Just as Ella began to rebuild her life, her past reappeared in the form of Marcus. He showed up at the diner one evening, his presence sending a chill down her spine. "You look different, Ella," he said, smirking as he slid into a booth. "Working here now? Quite the downgrade." "What do you want, Marcus?" she asked, trying to keep her voice steady. He leaned closer. "I've been hearing things about you. Word gets around, you know. Imagine if your little diner friends knew about the girl you used to be." Panic surged through her. "You can't threaten me. I've changed." Marcus laughed. "People don't change, Ella. You're still the same girl who used to cling to my arm, desperate for money. Don't think you can erase that." That night, Ella confided in David, tears streaming down her face. "He's going to ruin everything. What if he tells everyone about my past?" David took her hands in his. "Ella, listen to me. Your past doesn't define you. You've worked too hard to let someone like him drag you down. You have to face him." The next day, when Marcus returned, Ella stood her ground. "You don't control me anymore," she said firmly. "If you want to tell people about my past, go ahead. But I'm not the same person, and I'm not afraid of you." Marcus was taken aback by her strength and eventually left, muttering under his breath. Ella's confrontation with Marcus marked a turning point. For the first time, she felt in control of her life. She continued working hard, attending therapy, and volunteering at a local women's shelter. Sharing her story with others who were struggling helped her heal. Her relationship with David blossomed. He wasn't perfect, but he was patient and kind, and he believed in her even when she doubted herself. One evening, as they walked along the riverbank, David stopped and pulled a small box from his pocket. "Ella, I know you've been through a lot, and I know you're still finding your way. But I want to be there with you, every step of the way. Will you marry me?" Tears filled her eyes as she nodded. "Yes, David. Yes." Their wedding was simple but beautiful, surrounded by a few close friends. As Ella stood at the altar, she felt a sense of peace she had never known. 6 months after their wedding, Ella discovered she was pregnant. The news was both thrilling and terrifying. She had spent years living recklessly, and the idea of becoming a mother felt overwhelming. "David," she said one evening, holding the positive test in her trembling hands, "what if I'm not good enough? What if I can't do this?" David wrapped his arms around her. "Ella, you've already done the hardest thing, changing your life. You'll be an amazing mother because you know how much it matters." The night her water broke was chaotic. David rushed her to the hospital, fumbling nervously with the keys as Ella gritted her teeth through the contractions. "You're doing great," he said, though his panicked expression suggested otherwise. Hours later, as the sun rose, Ella gave birth to a healthy baby boy. She held him in her arms, tears streaming down her face. "He's perfect," she whispered, her voice breaking. They named him Ethan. Looking into his tiny face, Ella felt a love she had never known before. It was pure, unconditional, and overwhelming. Motherhood was not without its challenges. Sleepless nights, endless diaper changes, and the constant worry of whether she was doing enough kept Ella on her toes. But every smile, every giggle, and every milestone made it worth it. Ethan became her anchor, constant reminder of how far she had come. She often sat by his crib, whispering stories of her journey, not to dwell on the past, but to remind herself of the strength it took to create a new future. 3 years later, Ella gave birth to a baby girl, whom they named Lily. With 2 children, her life became even more chaotic but also infinitely more fulfilling. She and David worked as a team, balancing work and parenting. Ella often took the kids to the shelter where she worked, teaching them the importance of kindness and compassion. One afternoon, while playing in the yard, Ethan asked, "Mommy, why do you help those ladies?" Ella knelt down beside him, brushing his hair back. "Because, sweetheart, everyone deserves a second chance. And sometimes, people just need someone to believe in them." Years later, Ella stood in the kitchen, watching as Ethan helped Lily with her homework. David walked in, wrapping his arms around her. "Look at them," she said, her voice filled with emotion. "I never thought I'd have this, a family, a home, a purpose." David kissed her cheek. "You've earned it, Ella. Every bit of it." As they sat down for dinner, Ella reflected on her journey. Her life had been filled with mistakes, heartbreak, and pain, but it had also been filled with lessons, growth, and redemption. She looked at her children, their laughter filling the room, and felt an overwhelming sense of gratitude. Not everyone gets a second chance, she thought, but for those who do, it's a gift worth fighting for. Ella's story is a powerful reminder that while it's possible to turn your life around, the path to redemption is not guaranteed. Many who live recklessly never get the chance to rebuild. Her journey teaches us the importance of making better choices early on and valuing love, kindness, and integrity over fleeting pleasures.
Please subscribe, like, comment and share this video. It means a lot to us. Thank you.